everybody doing? Good. Pretty good.
Very intrigued.
Exactly.
Very intrigued.
Intrigued?
Yeah, over the weekend I prepared questions for you
Okay.
to ask you throughout class.
After class or during class?
Whichever comes first.
Yeah, you can ask during class. Might be questions that other people have too.
I would hope. One of the questions, what would you do if you just had $1,000? I mean, maybe.
This looks like whiskey.
I know. I was like, this dude dressed like a Peaky Blinder. If anybody knows that show.
And it's vodka, that's right. Just kidding.
Irish whiskey.
Yeah. What's your? Go ahead. $1,000.
Yeah. Well, the actual question is, let's say, if you just had $1,000, what would you do with it?
So context matters, right? So you're like, well.
I left gray area because I want to see how your brain works. That's really the reason why I have very vague.
All I have is $1,000.
$1,000 to do whatever you wish with. I guess the exception, no stocks.
No stocks.
That's the only exception.
All right, $1,000. What would I do? It really depends on the objective. Is your objective to be a great business person, to go have some fun, to enjoy yourself, to make some money? But if you're just saying, just all things being equal, what would I do with $1,000? I'd say a good thing of anything. Let's just say $1,000 is just anything you do in life should be a portfolio of something, which means that it should never go. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Anything in life, right? We all want to do different things. We want to have some enjoyment. So yeah, I probably use a little bit to go enjoy myself and go eat, go have some fun. Maybe spend $100 to go to like a really, really nice, restaurant that I like. I probably would invest $500. And by investments, I would say.
It's not stocks. So you say you invest into a business.
Yeah. Investment, just saying, find people who are working on something where they need some money, right? And then ask for a return. And that's it. Because you think about, you look at yourself almost as a bank. If you look at yourself as a bank, that's what great investors are. They say, hey, I'm not Chase, I'm not Bank of America, but I do look around to see where can I give people money and get a return back. Just like you would with a car note, right? You're making a ton of money off you with a car note. You're making a ton of money off you if you get a condo or whatever. So you're saying in this society, act like you're a bank, right? Everybody needs money. And there's a lot of people out there with a ton of money that don't know where to put it. That's where I came in. So with private equity, I was like, man, I know a lot of wealthy people. And they have stocks and bonds and treasury notes and all this stuff, but they want some other stuff. They want to invest in some real estate. And a lot of them didn't know about real estate. Well, a lot of them wanted some opportunities, and so I had to find buildings that were already making money, proven, right? Show the proof. Show what I could do when it comes to the future with these buildings, how we could renovate and increase the rents over time. Show how it would improve them over time and make them phenomenal. And then show the return. You show the return, like, hey, we'll make 10% increase a year in your investment over a year. And they say, hey, that's kind of better than the market of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever. This is great. This diversifies my portfolio. I already got stocks, bonds, mutual funds. I want some other stuff. I want real estate. So that's the thing, is finding opportunities of people who need the money. Right? And honestly, you could do that with anybody. You could do that with family. So you could lend somebody who needs the money to family and be like, hey, I'll lend you $500. Could you pay me back $600 in 3 months? And make sure. Do the calculation. You're like, wow, I got $100 in 3 months off this $500. Now that's just one scenario. If you live your life thinking like that, you'll make a ton of money in a lot of different places, right? But then the other part is being realistic. Life's not all about money. Life's not all about investing in superb businessman. It's about enjoying yourself. So I would maybe find a cheap flight somewhere, $60 round trip, and go to Miami. Right? Go get something to eat. Come back. Still got a few more extra $100 to go do some other stuff. Right? So it's a good balance. Anybody who doesn't have a balance doesn't have a quality of life. I know a lot of people have a lot of cool stuff. They got a ton of debt. They never get real rest. They're always worrying about all the expenses they gotta pay for every month. They got a ton of money, ton of debt, crappy life. I don't want that life. Neither you should want that. Quality of life is the most important. So diversifying your life is key. Split everything up. Everything should be split. If you got $10, split it up. Do 3 separate things with 10, with 100. Don't just put everything to one thing. Because everything's a risk, right? So why do you want to risk by placing everything into one thing? Everything like coming to college is a risk that has not paid off yet. So you're with the assumption like, hey, what would I do with my time instead of being at Dominican University? Like, well, maybe I could be at home in my bedroom at my parents' house, working on the next Facebook so I could be worth 100 billion, right? Or you're like, oh, I'm working on creating a car wash or a detail business. Or I want to start XYZ business instead of going to Dominican University. And you're like, well, okay, it's a risk. You can work on that. How long would that take? Where do we get the money from? By that time, people may have graduated. At least start getting decent jobs to later on fulfill their dreams. So here's the deal. $1,000. What would I do with it first? Nothing. Everything starts with a goal. If you have no goal, you will continuously waste your time and your money. The first thing starts with you personally. We're talking about mission statements and vision. You as a human being, the individual person, do you have a mission statement about yourself? Do you have a vision about yourself, what you want to do, an objective? Or you're like, hey, Professor Ross, I've been here, you guys are freshmen or whatever, but there are some people who have been here a long time. What do you want to major in? I'm not sure. What do you want to do? Not really certain. How come? I don't take that long to figure out what you want to do, right? Because it could be easy, but I want to have a ton of money so I'm able to travel. I love travel, so I need money to travel. Okay, that sounds like you got a vision, at least. Maybe not a mission statement, but a vision. So first thing is have a goal. So I would do nothing first. I would wait till I have a goal. Once I have a goal, then I have a direction on what to do with the $1,000. I teach a class called Strategic Decision Making for Global Leaders. And we talk about, how do you maximize return, right? For your shareholders, stakeholders. How do you make the right decision based on the capacity, your capacity for resources that you have? What is your capacity? What is the limitations you have right now? Number two, what are you actually capable of doing? Are you doing your best? Or are you cruising by? Literally, like every day, what is a victory? A victory is a person who did their best. Did they win the game? Who cares? The victory is you did your best. Remember we said we don't worry about things outside of your control. Whether you won the game or not is outside of your control. You doing your best is inside of your control. Right? Foolish people spend their time thinking about things outside of your control. I wonder what they think about. Hey, who cares? Right? I wonder what he or she is doing. I don't know. They're doing what they're gonna do. So the point is, how you think makes you a good leader. Some people see things and say, man, Professor Ross, I got a problem. Like, is that a problem? Is that a challenge? Right? Is everything a problem? Right, you're not the only person with problems. Everybody on earth, everyone has a problem. tomorrow you have a disease or something. Who knows? But it happens. The point is how you think makes you a good business person or a good leader. And not everybody's cut out for it. Not everybody's not gonna be Barack Obama or Trump or whoever. Because they're not cut out for it. They don't see things the way that others see it. The point is, we look at something, everybody looks at it. Some people see things completely different than everybody else, right? Some people see things in a very obvious way, and other people see things as like, oh, that's an opportunity. What's the next question? Before we get in the lecture, we could just have random questions. Just ask me anything. You can ask me whatever you want. Personal questions, whatever you want to know.
Anybody? Now I got one.
Yes.
Any tips on like trying to get to like financial freedom?
Yes. All right. So think of this: you're gonna get out of here, and you're gonna want a super cool car. And I understand why you want it, because maybe you never had one, right? So in life, everything's about experience. You want to experience what it's like to fly to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. You want to experience what it's like to drive a Mercedes or not, and that's fine. That's normal, right? So don't think that this stuff is bad. Normal human behavior. You want to know what it's like to wear those shoes. And when you get the nice shoes, you feel fantastic. After you wear them for a month, now you want a new one. A new one that they popped up on Instagram from the algorithm. Things you like and look at, right? Point is, low debt. Yeah, you want the cool car. They approve you for the car. Now it's a ridiculous amount of money you pay. And now you're living still at home with a cool car. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's not financial freedom. Financial freedom is low debt. So you don't have to worry, right? So you say, well, I'll save up money to buy a decent used car. $7,000. Decent. One that'll last maybe like 10 years if you maintain it properly. Instead of having to worry about a monthly bill. Because you can use that money to think about other projects, right? Or starting a business. The other part too, no one's ever got rich for working anyone, very rarely, I would say. Maybe there's some jobs. You'd be like, well, CEO of Coca-Cola making 200 million a year. Very few people have gotten rich working for people, right? So I would say if you want financial freedom, try to find a way to work for yourself. Working for people, it'll put you in a position to where you would just be kind of a lab rat. You just do the same thing over and over. Become a businessman, your life could change overnight, right? And something's always new, and you're in control of that. And having a business, I'm telling you, the greatest thing about having a business is helping other people. That's what you don't learn. You're like, man, I give people a job so they can take care of their family. Like, that's wonderful. Right? But they could go to the hospital. They could pay for their kids to go to school or something. That's better than, after you start making money or whatever, that's better than just the money. You realize life's, there's some bigger, higher things going on. Yeah, so low debt. Debt's good if you know how to manage it. Most people don't. Once again, human impulse is to, you see something, and you say, I got the credit, I'll buy it. You're like, really, you don't have the money. Pay for it, So, stay out of debt and have a goal. The goal is to really just be an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurship should be the goal. Next question.
What would you consider as like a low amount of college debt?
It's hard these days. Back in the day, you could work at Burger King and pay off your college tuition. Right? So here's the scam. Right? Most of life is about scams for the people who don't know better. Right? And scams come from very wealthy people who set this up. We already established this as a debt economy. The United States is so big because everybody's in debt. That's just a fact, right? We said 30-some trillion in credit, only 2.3 trillion in cash. Right, I just want the cash. I don't want the loan, right? The terms and APRs and finance fees and like, no, just give me the cash. That's not how we work, right? Everything's mostly on credit or loan. So you're like, well, is the house really worth that? Probably not, right? You're gonna buy it, why? Because you've been trained to. You've been trained to go take out the loan for $300,000 for 30 years. Now you realize after 30 years you actually pay $700,000 after all the interest, right? So you're like, well, it's for the people who don't know better. That's really what it's for. But the people who got off are the people who financed it. They're wealthy. They always be wealthy. They always have the knowledge and they'll teach their kids the knowledge. They're not gonna teach everybody else that stuff. So I say, what is a decent amount? I say it's based off the expectations of what you'll make in the near future. So really what it's like, hey, Professor Boss, I expect to make $40,000 when I graduate. And I teach classes at Concordia too, right? So I asked that question, and a lot of people are like, somebody said like 28,000. Somebody said, most of the people said 40s. I was like, man, it's 40s? It's like 40 something when I graduated as an undergrad. Still guys want to make 40,000? You know what that is after taxes? Like you'd be worried about if you can afford like a number 10 from McDonald's after paying your car note, your apartment, and all the extra stuff. Like really it'd be like $29,000. Right? And you figure, okay, $29,000, it's like $2,000 and something, right? Rent is how much in Chicago? Car note, car insurance, you wanna go out and you wanna buy some clothes, buy a sweater. You wanna do some stuff. So you're like, all right, you'll be broke. But if you expect to make at least like $80,000, I'm like, okay, now you're on to something. That's still not the greatest, but you're on to something. So really, like, what is your personal expectations on what you're gonna make? And it all goes to how you think. You think you're worth $40,000? That's on you. Somebody else in the same class might say, I work at least like 95 tops. And they'll say, I know how to use even though I don't have work experience, I know to use all of the things I've done in my life to put on a piece of paper to show that I'm more competent than my competitors. Another person, I just wrote a regular old resume. I don't have no work experience. You got life experience. So once again, it goes to how you think. And that's what makes a difference between business people. Some people be extremely creative and say, I don't have work experience, but I volunteered this and that. But the way I set it up, made it look like I was the CEO of a company or something. Another person just very basic. Right? Same old template, same old this, they Google. So it's really how you think. You either think like a business person or you think average. Business people don't think average. They see everything as like, how do I win? Right? How do I win to get the job that I want to do what I want to do? Next question.
When doing real estate, would you say it's better to buy a house, fix it up, and then flip it right away, or rent it for
Rent. HGTV is fake. We watched the shows, we flipped, right? We flipped I'm gonna buy a cheap house and flip it. When I first started out, everybody was doing that, right? Everybody lost money. Very rarely do people, I wouldn't say everybody, but very rare. Unforeseen costs, right? Let's say very simply, you're like, man, would I rather know how much I'm paying for something right now with fixed costs, right? You're gonna learn this in all your other business courses, fixed versus variable costs, right? You can take economics and accounting, finance, blah, blah, blah. Right, we rather know fixed costs, or would you rather have variable costs? Something that could potentially change over time. Right, give me the fixed costs every time. I know how much I pay, I know how much I charge. Now I bought this house, right? And they did the inspection, everything looked good, and then they come in and realize like the pipes were mangled underneath. You need a new whole foundation, just all sorts of crazy stuff. And you're like, wow, I lost like $100,000 on that deal because I still needed somebody to buy it, which takes time. And then I'm working with a bunch of contractors who never fulfill their obligations on time. This is how it works. So flipping houses, it sounds so cool. Sounds great. They got a lot of shows about it, right? But no, I would rent. It's fixed, it's guaranteed. You can calculate it right there and move on with your life to the next project, because time is money, right? Time is money. The car dealers will sell the car cheaper or sell it wholesale once it's been sitting too long. People will lower the price of the house once it's been sitting on the market too long. They're losing money, right? So you never want to have anything sitting. When you go and buy the t-shirt and now it's on clearance for $2 at TJ Maxx or Marshall's, it's been sitting there forever. So it goes to show you the real value of something depends on time. Like, yeah, oh, they're charging $200 for this hoodie. I got on clearance for $20. What happened? What changed? Time. I just waited a little bit longer. I wasn't as thirsty as everybody was to get it right then and there. So yeah, flipping houses, I know very few people who've made money that way. You know. Yeah, next question.
For going into starting your own business of owning properties, what job to gather income and knowledge about that would you like recommend?
I mean, I started as a real estate broker. So I was a broker for Berkshire Hathaway. And I did homes in Lincoln Park. So, you know, I lived north side, so on like the Gold Coast. And I grew up like Lincoln Park and Lakeview and stuff like that. So I focused on areas that I knew. Well, first of all, I focused on a bunch of areas. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna do anywhere, suburb, city. That was a complete wrong decision. You spread yourself too thin. Always focus on one particular thing. So if you ever become a real estate broker, say, I'm only doing this neighborhood. Why? Gas, time, money, right? One house might sit on the market because the markets are completely different. If you become more confident, if you know about just one market, you focus on it, become an expert at that market. You can never become an expert at 12 suburbs in the city of Chicago. Like, it won't work that way. So I took time to learn. You know, so I was like, all right, that doesn't work. So let me go back to the drawing board. I'll focus on these neighborhoods, and that's when it started to click. So if you become a broker, you kind of learn everything about houses. You kind of learn like the selling prices, right? You do comps, but you learn on like capitalization rate, like when people who, you know, you buy a building, you get rents from it, you're trying to see how much investment money you'll get, return on investment versus what you paid for it, right? So that's the key right there. You kind of can quickly assess like, all right, this is how much I'm gonna end up getting back from what I paid, right? So I would say real estate brokerage is the way to go if you wanna learn, if you wanna be investing in real estate. Next question.
Any advice on like starting an online business?
I mean, just when it comes to online businesses, it should make it easier because of the marketing is going to be primarily online. So I say set aside budget for the things that are kind of structured to help online businesses, right? Which is Google Ads, right? You want to be the first to pop up in a search, right, with their algorithm. You want to pay Facebook, because Facebook you can center on certain demographics depending on what you're selling, right? Age demographics, people that you know want to buy this stuff, certain areas. And the same to go with Instagram. And then you gotta maybe hire some people. I would hire some people to monitor like social media activity, right? And also hire people to do creative social media ad work. So I say really, it's really about the amount of views and exposures you get about something, right? So if you pay for the Instagram, you pay for people who search for similar products, your product will start showing up to them. Like, that's worth it, right? That's gonna draw business to my business. So yeah, I would say advertising budget. That's gonna be your primary source of getting people to buy your product. To pay Facebook, pay Instagram, do the TikTok, start YouTube, all that stuff. Anything else? Any other questions? You ask me anything. I'm pretty open book.
Do you think people actually need something to start something? Like, a lot of people want to, like you said as well, you don't need anything to start.
You I would say you need creativity to start, right? It's just like how you're looking at something. Some people are like, man, I don't have, my thing was, I don't have money. Biggest thing. So I started learning, like, what the heck do the billionaires do? How did Warren Buffett start? What do these billionaires do to actually make money? All they do is present ideas on an investment. And they get people who are wealthy to go in on the investment and commit and sign documents and contracts. Say, yes, Professor Ross, I will give you $2 million over a 5-year period, expecting a 10% return every month, and you have the $2 million. I'm like, okay, let me multiply that if I could do that by 5. You're like, that's $10 million. How much money did I use? Absolutely zero. I presented the idea, now we have the funding, right? But the funding could be, the funding is a corporation, right? So the big private equity groups, they start funding, and it's for a project. They're like, oh, we want to buy out this mall. We want to buy out this 40-story building, right? We want to buy out XYZ. How do we do it? We need people to get in to go fund it. That's how they even do it when they purchase, like, Magic Johnson Group will, purchase 10% interest in the LA Dodgers. Right, Magic Johnson Group, who is that? It's a group of investors. Magic Johnson's just the name on it, right? Maybe it's his idea, he's the principal, but the other people gave him the money, right? He used that money to go buy the interest in the team so that it produces a return on investment. So really it takes the creativity. So once again, somebody say, I don't have the money, I don't have the credit, I got a crappy credit score, I got no credit history, I'm broke, I don't have any money, can barely survive. What I'm gonna do? Present some investment options. Go find something that's worth investing in, and you can present it. So the thing was with me, right, so the SEC regulates a lot of these investments, right? So you do gotta follow a lot of legal rules, but there's loopholes. So here in Illinois, you're allowed 5 accredited investors. What does accredited mean? People with net worth over about $2 million. Anything more than 5, you have to register. I was like, I don't wanna do all that. I don't wanna have to register and do all that extra legal stuff, right? I went to law school, I know a lot about the contracts and stuff like that. And so I just maintain always 5 investors, and I would change the amount of money that I wanted from each. And so if one deal goes successful, now they believe in you to do other deals, right? So it really was the one deal that had to be very, very successful. So I say creativity. How creative. One person sees things as like, I can't do nothing because I'm broke. Another person sees something as like, I gotta do something without money. I can get billions of dollars of people to give to me without money. Obviously, people have to believe in me. So it's maybe personality, it's maybe some other stuff I did. I worked in real estate. I know how to sell myself and market myself pretty good. But then I tell you too, when I was an MBA student, I made everybody buy the books for me, right? So clearly I didn't just wait around for things to happen. I think I made like $30,000 in an MBA program here at the Pentagon. Right? And they was like, well, why do you do that? Because we're in business. I thought we were in business school. I thought we were here to make money. Well, I'm starting right now. I'm making money right now. But that's what I'm saying, the mindset. So what is the difference? It's a mindset. You have to change the way you think. Change the way you think. The other thing is just unlearning stuff. It's like the stuff you learn as a person who's a psychologist as well too, like a person, the stuff we learn we have to unlearn and relearn. Yes, your parents taught you this. Yes, you think it goes this way. You grow up, you find out most of it's lies, most of it's BS. A lot of it is just learned behavior from those people too. So you really have to unlearn and relearn a lot of stuff that's been taught. Because we get projected everything on us. We project fears onto other people. I can't do that. Where'd you learn you can't do that? Who told you that? My environment, my family, the people I surround myself with. Oh, okay. So now you get those same fears. So you gotta relearn and retrain your brain to kind of think fresh. It's difficult, very difficult, but it can be done. I say this too, here's a key. Perfecting simple things, becoming an expert at simple things is better than trying to figure out complex things. Life should not be complex. If you can't explain in 2 minutes to a 2-year-old, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's not gonna work. You know what I mean? Everything you do should be able to be explained 2 minutes to a 2-year-old. If you made it complex, like, oh, well, you gotta carry it to 3 and do it, like, no. Because you only get that amount of time for people who wanna either help you, give you a job, give you some money for something, an idea. So I say, think simple, not complicated. If you complicate this stuff, you will fail. A high degree of failure, I would say. So what's the key? Plan. If you don't have a plan, nothing matters. You plan poorly, then it's doomed to fail. If you plan properly, you got a high chance of success. So planning is one. Have a vision, have a goal. Keep it simple. Keep everything simple. Yeah, you see the professors and you think they're all this, all that. No, keep it simple. Right? You could far exceed anybody here at this school. I don't care what title they have. This is about keeping it simple. Coca-Cola found a product, kept it simple. They make trillions of them. That's it. They get all the money. They're the most recognized brand on earth. They didn't create, the most technical thing on earth. It's about keeping it simple. Keep it simple and become an expert at that. An expert at doing something simple very, very well. So focus. The other part is belief, and that's kind of a hard one. It's like believe in yourself. It does take, if you want to manage a product or a company, you think the people who are CEOs are, they may be introverted. And I'm telling you, they may be introverted. They may be like, I don't really like talking to people or coming up making speeches and doing interviews. But they say, I know how to create a different me that does know how to do that. Right? So yeah, you can be like, hey, I don't even know if I have the confidence to do it. But you're like, there's 2 me's. There's the personal me who doesn't want to do that, and then there's the business me who knows I have to do it. And if you could be able to kind of create that persona, then you'll be successful. It's almost like creating a separate you. You really have to do that in business. A lot of times things may violate your, that blurs the line between ethics, morals, value, religious beliefs. Like you can't be in business and that stuff doesn't cross the line. It can. So you gotta learn how to work around that too. So yeah, the point is to believe in yourself too. You have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, I don't know how you can make it work. You absolutely have to believe in yourself. What else?
I think this one is because of tax reasons. I'm not sure if this is an eligible thing. I mean, of course you love taxes. Is this one? It's because, how do I put this? Let's say I've paid people, but I don't have a company, I don't LLC.
Yeah.
Should I be keeping track of what I pay these people?
You should always keep track of your finances. You should always run into.
Well, I do. I'm just asking, is it a good idea to do?
Yeah, absolutely. We have laws, right? So anybody could bring some sort of legal attention to you. The point of the LLC It's that limited liability company. Limited liability.
Actually, what it means.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, like, when you see something, you're like, man, I'm so intimidated. I don't know what that means. Literally look at the word, you know? I was saying maybe in law school, like, I dropped out of law school, so I don't want to be a lawyer. But I went for a little bit. But the point was, at least what I gathered from that, things that seem so intimidating are in the word itself. Just look at the word, you'll figure out the meaning of what it means. Yeah, limited liability. Like if you, let's say you go buy a building, a 3-story building, and you put it in your name. Now you got people in there, now somebody slipped outside because it was snowing, you know, here in Chicago. If you shoveled the snow, you're liable. You left it for the natural world natural environment to thaw out, now you're not liable, right? You're liable because you did something to it, right? There's always some liability for anything crazy. So now you get sued, and who they're gonna come after? You. There's no company for them to come after. So yes, you should always have a company. Always have a company. And here's the other thing too. So how do people get ahead with the companies, with the LLCs? Put everything in the LLC. All the gas they use in your car, all the clothes they bought for the year, all the meals they went out and ate, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, and they write it off as a business expense.
It's what tax deductible.
Yeah.
It's not what
And
it's
you think
called.
as a person, you didn't write off nothing. It's just wasting money. It's gone. You bought the t-shirt, you bought some coffee, you went out to eat, it's gone. There's other people like, man, I could do this a different way. Right? Like now I'm going to the bank. I get a credit card, get a business card. All type of promotions. Right? I get a business credit card. Different. I get a business, this, a business, that. Eventually everything becomes business. And the point is to
So
take.
that's a loophole.
I would say it's a loophole, it's just how, it's the law. It's just what it is in this country.
It's just a law.
I mean, it's just what it is. I mean, you can get away with that stuff. I don't know if it's getting away, it's just business. It's what it's about. And this is just for the people who know and the people who don't. And that's the part I'm saying, like, get to know the ins and outs of the stuff. But you only get to know by starting it. You don't get to know just by observing it and, you know, reading about it. But yes, you start a business, now you put everything as a business expense. Everything. And then you're able to write off as an expense at the end of the year. Because you want to have low income for yourself. It's called income taxes. They don't tax it unless it's income, right? So you want to make sure you get it out of there and do something with it. Invest it, put it in a business, so it's not taxed. So now you're like, how did they pay? How those wealthy people did not pay zero? How did they pay zero taxes? They literally moved all that money they made. They moved it out. They invested it, reinvested it, put it into businesses. So you're like, how much taxes you got? Nothing at the end. All the money's gone somewhere else. It's all for a purpose. But then the average person is still in their W-2s, not doing nothing with the money. So yeah, creativity. And that's what I'm saying. You meet people like that, like, oh, this is a business person. The way they think, how they do things, they're not doing it like the average person does it. You know, maybe you can call them a shark. You know, you watch Shark Tank, you like, the way those people think are like sharks. Everything's like maximizing return on investment, and they're just thinking of creative loopholes and ways. Right? They're just business people. And that's, if you guys are gonna go in business, that's how you should be thinking. Immediately.
Where the loopholes, where can I get tax deductible?
I mean everything. That's a business person. If you own a business, you want to save money, right? But it gets more technical than that. The other class I teach is operations management. I'm like, well, what's that about? That's like the engineering of business. It's like looking at every single step in the process. Like, is this efficient? Am I using people efficiently? Is the cost the right cost? Is this the right price? Switch it out. Change your menu, right? On Thursdays. So that's more of like the engineering of it, looking at the process of each step. But on the big picture, these are things you could be going, and I'm learning, but I will say this, right? I didn't learn private equity in school. Unfortunately, I didn't find a class that taught it. I took finance, and you'll take finance if you major business. Like, I took finance, I didn't hear anything about hedge funds, right? I didn't hear anything about private equity. I didn't hear anything about venture capital. Right? I did learn about stocks, bonds, treasury notes, right? How to do the calculation for this and that, and accounting. And so really how I learned? I learned by observing the wealthy people, right? So I learned by just observing the wealthiest people to see how they operate. And you can't fail if you observe the people with money, right? Remember we said never ask a broke person how to make $1 million. It's the rule. Ask people who got $1 billion how they did it, and how they keep doing it, and how they make it. Right? And then you'll be able, if you can follow the same patterns and steps, or just the way that they think, then you'll be quite successful. Right? Quite successful. On the amount of debt and credit that they take or don't take. You know, learning how the value of things versus the price. How to negotiate, all of that stuff. So unfortunately, I didn't learn it. You know, I didn't learn it in school. But I did learn marketing, management, accounting, basic economics in school. But some of the stuff wasn't taught. And so that's the part where you gotta educate yourself. All right, any other questions? The same people, you guys, nobody else got any questions?
I still got 2 out of 5, so.
No questions over here? No? Career questions? Anything like that? Okay, I'll let you go.
For like your private investors that you found, were those people you knew, or just people you knew had money but you didn't really know them, so you just kind of emailed them?
No, most I didn't know. I did know like a couple of them, which kind of was the gateway, you know, being exposed to other people. What happened was I was kind of fortunate in the sense I used to work at this company, and we would do research for these products and services and stuff like that. And I used to have like a hot sheet. And the hot sheet was, I would have to call the gatekeepers to these CEOs, right? So I could extract information from them, get information for research purposes and for other, get them as clients and stuff too.
It's currently what I'm doing.
Yeah. And that helped me build skills on how to like just reach out to people, which we'll talk about here, communication, right? Which we'll get to shortly for the people that's waiting to get to the lecture. But that did allow me to have access to some really wealthy people to get their advice. I mean, I had like a hot list, like I would speak to Steve Jobs like secretary. He was still alive, like Bill Gates, Paul Allen, who's at Microsoft. Quite a few people, and then a bunch of other people here in Chicago too. So that kind of helped. But basically, I had like one person who knew local people, had a ton of money, and they wanted to come sit down and have dinner, have lunch, look at my proposals. But they were all proposals. But my proposals were so laid out in a way that was concise, straight to the point, and how it would work. But they liked it.
And did you specify this to people you kind of had an idea would invest in you, or you just assumed that they possibly would be willing to?
I mean, there's always an assumption that they possibly will, but I did filter down the people who are looking for real estate investments, not other investments. Yeah. So how I do it, you do it like any other entrepreneur. You would go and present like this. Like, hey, here's my presentation. Let me show you my business. Let me get to the financial part to show you how it's gonna make money for you, right? You see all the great ideas, see the marketing, see everything else, and you get to the point to where you can see the finances. This makes sense. How much you need, how long? All right, could we pull out after X amount of time? Yeah, absolutely. Things like that. It was just an investment vehicle, basically. Okay, we'll take one last question before we get to our lecture. Yeah, somebody else? Yeah, okay.
So I want to do like social media marketing.
as social, like you wanna start a business for social media marketing, or you just wanna, work for another company?
I don't know which route would be best, that's basically.
Okay, I tell you this, like, for the people who wanna start businesses, most great businesses start out as a team. It's not one person, it's not one person's idea. It normally starts out about like 3 to 5 people, right? Look at Google, was it Sergey and the other guy were PhD students at the University of Michigan, right? In the same program studying engineering, and they're studying like algorithm engineering. And they linked up, said, we got the great idea, we're the brains people, right? We know nothing about business, nothing about like finances, investing. And they said, we need to get people who are good at that in our group. And you get the people who are good at that in that group and say, hey, this is the idea, do you think this is a great idea? Do you wanna be part of this team? Because it's all about a team. Do you want to be part of this team? They said yes. Now we got 5 minds trying to make something work, not just one, right? 5 people on board who do different things well. Someone can focus on marketing, someone can focus on getting investors and financing, someone else could focus on managing the people. Everybody can focus on a different part, but it's never one. The people I know who I have a great idea and I'm gonna do it all myself, it's never worked, ever. Any successful company, any successful CEO says, my success depends on the smart people around me. The CEO might say, like, I'm the dumbest person out of the group, but I know how to manage. I know how to make it simple for everybody to understand. Or I know how to manage the people in the group. But that's my skill. Like, wow, you're the CEO just because of that? Yes, not because I'm the engineer, or I'm excellent at accounting or finance. So it takes a group, right? So I say get 5 people on board, including yourself. Have good communication about what it is you want to achieve exactly. Right? Because it starts off like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then it gets more detailed, like how are you going to do it? And that's like the real part. The real part's like, what exactly do you want to do in social media marketing? You know what I'm saying? Because it's very broad. There's a lot of stuff. So you have to go and dive more into specifics, right? Because we all get great ideas, but you got to be a little bit more specific because you just want a tiny slice of the market share. You don't want the whole pie because that's unrealistic. You just want a tiny piece. So it starts with putting together a group. All right, we'll finish off our lecture as much as we can. Did everybody look at exercise 4 and 4.2? Everybody turn that in? Get that announcement? All right, cool. It looks like we've got an exam coming up, which I think will be our midterm. And the review is on there. So we'll get into, finish our communications.
It's my favorite section.
Okay.
It's my favorite class so far today.
What?
This.
I try to make it interesting. I mean, yeah, the great thing about this class is like this is, how many people are gonna end up actually majoring in business?
I want to, but who knows at this point.
You're uncertain.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, the class is really, I think, for people who like, hey, I wanna know if business is the direction I should go, right? That's why it's a gateway practicum. So not everybody here may be like, some people are like, I wanna do nursing, I wanna do this, I don't wanna be a business person. But it does give you an understanding to, even when you go work for a company, you be like, hey, I know how the company operates, right? I know if they're not offering me enough money, right? I know kind of the economy, the industry, the market in which company exists, things like that. So it's good for just kind of reflecting to see if business is what you want to do. All right, effective communication, analyzing the audience. Can you read people, right? Are you able to read people? But also, are you able to read them based on what you don't know and what you actually know, right? So here they're analyzing the audience for expectations, trying to figure out the expectations of the audience. What do they want to get from you? What do you want them to get from you, right? And how to convey that information. Look at their education level. Everybody's not the same education level, so you need to know who you're speaking to and maybe speak their language, right? You don't want to be too over verbalized if you're speaking to people who are uneducated or something, right? They understand simple things. Now, if you're speaking to people who are very educated and they like to hear the complex and use the language and Queen's English and all that different stuff, yeah, you switch it up. And then the professional background of that individual. How much experience do they have in that area? That is really important because it shows to the level of degree of competency that they have. And think of that too, of even like if you're selecting a partner to be in your group for your business, right? You do want to know if people have had some sort of background experience. And it doesn't have to go to work experience. It's just could be like, hey, they worked on a project or they volunteered, something of the nature, but they have some sort of background professionally. All right, this one is hard because in school we're taught that the longer the paper is, the better the paper, which is completely opposite, right? And I thought that too. You know, I think when I first started as a freshman in college, literally I thought I was writing like as if I was Shakespeare. Like I'm gonna write the greatest paper, and so that my professor thinks that I'm so smart, and you know, Mr. Ross, your language and your all this stuff. And I just realized, okay, that's just really a waste of time. So by the time I got to like PhD level, even though I wrote a dissertation, which is like 300 some pages long, every word still had to be concise, consistent, which means I didn't put too many fillers, right? A lot of times we fill the page up with a lot of but, they, and just a bunch of stuff just so we get the maximum amount of words, right? But the greatest things are the ones that are straight to the point. That's the ones that really hit home and make people stick. Straight to the point is always better than long, drawn out communications. So work on that. Think about that. Like even as you're writing things or you send emails or text, like if you know how to be very concise, but still, you know, not shorthanded, not sending memes and, you know, acronyms and emojis and stuff like that, but just to be very concise in conveying your communication is extremely important. It has value to people, right? It has value. Have you ever met somebody and like, oh man, the story, they draw it out, it never ends. And you're like, all right, I gotta go, you know. But then you meet somebody who can tell you everything that happened very quickly. You're always gonna value that person. That's the person you'll call to figure out what happened, right? They don't draw it out. Tell you exactly what happened very short. All right, avoiding slang and bias. Right? Important. If you're conducting business, if you're working in business, the only thing that matters is the money, is green. At that point, seeing very religious people from all over the world invest in some things that probably went against their religious beliefs, right? But the point is, the money's green. So you don't want to have bias. If you're gonna engage in business, you don't want to have particular bias towards race, ethnicity, nationality, age, gender, or preconceptions about members of a particular group, and avoiding slang. It's not good to talk in slang because I think what happens is no one takes you seriously at that point. When you're conducting business, have fun when you're having fun. Business is when you're conducting business, right? So you have fun outside of business, right? Or you don't, you be easy about things outside of business. If you're conducting business, you should generally be serious but friendly. Friendly but serious. But this should be an easy one. right? Avoiding gender, age, and other biases about a particular group. Have you guys ever had any experience with someone who's had those sort of biases in a business setting, either with you or just an observation?
Yes.
Any examples?
So I used to run a little candy business back in my high school.
Hmm?
I would buy the candies in bulk and sell everything for $1, which, you know, I still couldn't do now. I used to have a lot of vendors. I knew where the corners were, I knew where, you know, I didn't sell weed if anybody's thinking that right now. No, I sold candy bars, chocolate, stuff. And if people needed a hookup, I could get them, because there's a health code in our school for no sweets, no nothing, so I profit off that. A couple of the guys actually said, don't get female vendors, because they won't sell anything, they just eat it all. And I was like, that's not it. I hired 2 female vendors. They capitalized on everything. So everything they had, I paid them pretty well, and I made $300 off both of them every single week.
So you learn that the generalization and bias that these people here were wrong.
Yeah, because they had friend groups that always needed candy. They always knew people that were starving. You know, they were fasting and they wanted to, you know, be on their cheat day. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, girls capitalize on communication. The boys just know each other because of their friendships. The girls knew everybody because girls talk. So that was even better than what the boys were saying.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Excellent. All right, using active voice whenever possible. Here's an example. Here's an example of active, right? Using company property for personal use is prohibited, right? That communication is active. Do not use company property for personal use, right? One is passive, one is active. This is directing. Active is directing. This one is more of a suggestive factor. You don't want to suggest anything, right? You want to really command. So your language is extremely important in what you say and how you say it, right? It's not really what you say, it's how you say it here. Kind of saying the same thing, but they're just saying it differently. People will probably look more to this one to not do it. All right, here's another example, right? Joyce Carmen welcomed the participants and introduced the keynote speaker. The participants were welcomed by Joyce Carmen and the keynote speaker were introduced by her. This is kind of, I would say, lazy speech, right? Putting pronouns at the end. Added unnecessary commas where you needed to. This is more straight to the point. So active voice, subject performs the action expressed by the verb, right? And passive voice, subject is acted upon rather than doing the act. Writing, I tell you, this is a big one in school. When I was in college, like, man, there was some really intelligent people, but some people just couldn't write. Like, their writing was just very, very horrible. And I always wondered why, and I found out that a lot of people weren't reading a lot. You should constantly be reading, because reading reinforces writing, right? When you see proper words expressed on paper, instead of just looking at videos all the time, you look at videos, you can't see the words on paper. When you read, you see how words should be on paper. And also creates more creative thinking of how you could write and express things in a different way of what you're reading. So reading is important. Reading is exercising for your mind. Think about this idea. If you participate in a chess tournament for 3 hours, it's equivalent to going to export and working out for like 2.5 hours. You've wasted that many calories. You burn that many calories, right? Your mind does exercising. Your mind actually exercises. So the more you exercise your mind, the healthier your mind will be. The stronger your mind will be. All right, writing effectively, striking the right tone with the appropriate conversation style, right? Avoiding grammatical areas. So use spell check whenever you can, Microsoft Word, things like that. Using block paragraphs. using headings and bullets appropriately. I'll tell you a big one, like submitting papers for class, right? Some people do them very lazily and just put like a simple thing, just put their name at the top. Other people will be more formal. Therefore, you can kind of gauge the kind of person. They'll be formal. They'll put their name, the class, the term, maybe even their professor, right? They may put the title of what they're doing. I even know some people who actually put like a cover page to everything they did. And all that said to me, it was like, oh, this person's a little bit more formal and want things to be professional, right? Whereas the other person back, well, this is just a requirement. So you just require this is all I'm submitting. Either one is fine, but it does speak to personality types, right? It does speak to how people go about communicating to others. All right, verbal presentations. This one's, I think we talked about this, right? It's like, oh, you know, if you're uncomfortable standing in one position, move around. Yeah? Create a style, a personal style of how you like to talk. Some people are very arm movement, you know. Yeah, you know, they explain everything with arms. Some people are calm, they don't need their arms. Some people are monotone, they keep the kind of same voice. Some people are more relaxed. Some people are more funny. But anyway, your opening, how you start normally will dictate if you're good or bad. Right, so you start off like relaxing your audience with an informal joke. Made everybody relax through the use of words. If you walked in a room and you're totally quiet and all serious, you made everybody tense because now they think you're super serious, right? Now they're trying to pretend like they're paying attention. So you can dictate and navigate the audience based on your own body language. You can vet. So the point is to grab the attention with something to your audience, right? You say like, hey, picture this in your mind. And give an example. And they'll do it. They'll picture something in their mind. Giving them something to do. So let's do this. Let's all stand up for a second in class. All right, let's all stretch, bring our arms up. And one more time, all the way up as far as you can go. Touch your hands together all the way to the top. Bring it back down. That's it. Have a seat. You feel any different?
I was struggling. That's not fault. So many times.
Feel better?
Should make that a routine.
There you go. Okay, maybe we'll do that. The point is to engage your audience and make them do something that'll make it more interesting, right? Human nature is to be bored after 30 seconds of not saying anything that don't capture your interest, right? You look at your laptop, your phone. Then when I say something interesting, like, oh, yeah. Okay, just listen to that. But stretching is universal. It makes everybody feel good, right? Because you're releasing oxygen into the muscles. Okay, the body of your verbal presentation includes no more than 2 to 4 main points and explains them sequentially, right? Don't go out of sync of what you're explaining. Explain how one thing leads to the next, how the next thing needs to go next, and how that concludes. 4 points. You're like, yeah, guess what, Professor Ross, I have an awesome presentation. And then you do it and you're like, well, it's way too long. Why is it way too long? Human beings have very short attention spans, that's why. Maybe your presentation is the greatest of all time. But the audience for human nature means they're still too long and they're bored. Great presentation, too long. So make it short, to the point, no more than 2 to 4 main points, right? Which we call key takeaways. Which in any business, like, man, what are the key takeaways, right? Give me some insights into it. You don't have to do a whole dissertation about something. In closing is sort of just reiterating what you said, shortly. Right. I'm just gonna repeat exactly what I said at the beginning and in the middle, but I'm gonna hone it back in so it sticks with you, right? Your key takeaways. And it verbally signals to the audience that the speaker is about to conclude, right? So the people know, like, oh, okay, he's wrapping it up. He's wrapping it up. All right, suggestions using PowerPoint. Pictures and graphics are good. People like pictures and graphics rather than just a bunch of words, right? Words make you bored. Pictures and graphics make you think in a different way. Now you're looking at visual representations. Now your brain thinks in different, tries to solve problems. No more than 7 words per line for any presentation. You don't have an entire paragraph up there because nobody can read that. And they're not gonna read it. You know. And it also doesn't allow you to be more creative in how you think about what you're talking about. Because if it's just up there, you're just gonna go read off line for line, like, you know, read the entire paragraph off. When you could have just read a bullet point and talked about that bullet point. Paraphrasing, right? Shorten what you're saying, add examples, and offer analysis and interpretation. Avoid excessive use of special effects. Maybe one is good, right? One special effect is good. Oh, okay, that was interesting. Maybe one video was good. Like, yeah, I got a 45-second YouTube video. Wow, okay, that's interesting. Let's see it. Engaging with the audience more often, which is sometimes asking questions. Like, hey, have you ever experienced that? And that person like, oh, they call on me. Yeah, I did. Right. Is that right? 42? What time is it?
41.
44. All right, practice is key. You're not gonna come up here and get it all right. Or when you do your presentations, even outside, right? You're gonna be presenting at the end of the term, which would be nice if you warm, and I'll be there to support and help you. But my job here is really to get you prepared. I want you to be extra confident, maybe even a little arrogant about your presentation, right? And know exactly what it's about, what market, you know, the finances of it, and then be able to answer any of the difficult questions people ask, random questions. All right, know your material, but never memorize it word for word. You want to still have a little bit of your own voice about things, not some memorization. Look directly at members of your audience at least 50% of the time. Eye contact's important, right? Because eye contact conveys what? Yeah, what else? Connection, what else? When you speak to somebody and you look at them face to face, what does it convey? Yeah.
Engagement.
Yeah. What else? Respect. Right? It conveys respect.
Are we talking manner term or experience terms?
And anytime. But always look at people, right? Conveys respect to each other, not just one-sided, right? Respect. You're a person, I'm a person. I'm talking to you, I gave you my time, you give me your time. It's just respectful thing to do. But more importantly, it shows interest, right? Use facial expressions and your body language, right? You don't want to be monotone. You want to switch it up if something's exciting. exciting sound exciting. Use selective notes. You can keep notes about things, but keep them inconspicuous. Don't make them so obvious. Don't be like, you know? Maybe just have something, just a bullet point. Sticking to your allotted time. Don't go over your time. Slow down and listen to yourself. Always keep that inner voice in your head that you're going to listen to know if you're messing up and how to correct it. Don't apologize. Apologies are oftentimes unnecessary. People don't really value them like that. And be natural. Don't be fake. Right? You're unique. You're you. I'm me. Be you. Don't be me. Don't be anybody else. Just be you. You go up and you talk, right? You talk the way that you talk. This is how it is. All right, I'll end off here. Before we go, any other questions? Yes?
The number 2, which is, I never memorized it word for word. How, I feel like anytime I give a good speech or whatever, I do memorize it word for word. So how do you go about, I guess just, you have to do more all of me.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you memorize word for word, that's going to be anxiety because you're trying to recall something. And anxiety means eventually you'll stumble, right? So you want to leave time for it to be different than when you wrote it or thought about it. It's always going to be different. It never matches, right? We suffer more in our minds than in reality. It never matches what's written down or what's thought about. So it's better to just say, man, what are the 3 things I'm talking about? You're gonna remember what's attributed to those 3 things. We'll naturally talk about them normally. But if you remember, just say, I'm gonna repeat exactly what I remember, you're gonna stumble, and then everything else you remember will fail. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of a bad practice, because it never allows people to know who you really are and how you speak. You know what I'm saying? Like, once again, it's almost like this, it's scripted. You get what I'm saying? So if you wrote something down and you're an actor, you're on Saturday Night Live and you're reading the cue card, you're reading it scripted. But if somebody just came up there like, man, I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about some stuff, right? So let's say Dave Chappelle comes up and talks. You're like, he's not reading off of nothing script. He goes off and he's probably not remembering everything he said. It's like he's just gonna flow with it. He knows what he didn't talk about, but he's gonna allow for it to be natural. Now the actors go and do the segment, they're reading off the board. You know what I'm saying? It's scripted. So that's a script you get. Don't have a script. Have 3 bullet points in your mind and be, I know how I'm gonna make sense of these things, right? And that's keeping it simple. So keep it simple, less technical. The script is technical, because you gotta remember everything you said. You could write 3 bullet points in your hand and be like, oh, okay, yeah, next. I'm gonna move on to this. All right, anything else? All right, cool. I'll see you on Thursday. Have a good evening.